Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another training session of the Authentic Persuasion Method. This is actually session 16. Super excited to be here. Thanks for everyone tuning in right now. The main audience for this is via a Zoom webinar. If you haven't registered for that, go to jasoncutter.com. If you're here, welcome. Feel free to put a question, comment, anything regarding sales. Today's topic is going to be an extension of last week's, which is around urgency. If you're tuning in via one of the streams, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, welcome. You can also put comments, questions in there, and then I will see them when I can, or they'll get relayed to me so I can check them out and address them as we go through this. So last week was a recorded session. So I recorded it because I was out of town at a great event. I had a company that had me travel up to Seattle. Haven't been there in a very long time. It was so nice to be there, especially in winter, to visit and get that winter season experience, almost snowing up there, which is always fun to be there. One of the best things that came from that was part of the training that I did was actually hot seat, where I was giving feedback to them on deals that they had in progress or ones that they were struggling with closing. And that was super fun because that fits kind of the model of this slash with the group coaching program that I'm launching. And so that was really fun. Always fun to be in that kind of environment and run those things. So last week was recorded. This one is live. This is actually going to be the last session I'm going to do in this year. So the next 3 weeks, just going to take them off. There's Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, both land on a Friday. And I figured I could do them other times in the week, but I know that right now there's a lot of people focusing on either the end of the year, pushing hard for deals, or wrapping up, or taking time off, or tuning out, or dealing with holidays, family, travel, vacations. I'm in fact going on vacation as of this afternoon for a week. And so I figured, there's a lot of people focusing on a lot of different things right now. And there's a lot of great sessions that I've done, but I thought I would put this on hold. So this is going to be the last one of the year. Then we're going to kick it off in 2022 and continue the conversation along the authentic persuasion pathway, and really get deep into this to help you close more deals. Because one thing fundamentally that drives me is, I guess it's two things. One is I want to encourage and enable and impact and fill the world with over 1 million authentic persuaders. Because if we imagine what that would be like with 1 million people selling with authentic persuasion in the world, and what that would mean for the world, for consumers, for people out there who are customers, who that's all of us, and what that would mean, the experience that they have, what they would look like for them, the result that they would get, and over time being something they actually want to take part of. Because right now, fundamentally, if we think about it, dealing with a salesperson is dangerous. Dealing with a salesperson is fraught with the unknown. Is it going to go well? Is it not going to go well? Am I going to get help? Am I going to regret it? How much buyer's remorse am I going to have? Am I going to be ashamed of what's going to happen? Or am I going to get what I need and want and get to a better place and be happy and feel successful and grateful for the experience? And so that's what I want. The other part is my mission is threefold, which is to facilitate transformation by enabling and encouraging those light bulb moments that people have when you tell them something that they didn't know, or remind them of something that used to work. The light bulb goes off because it's effective. Second, help the underdog win their game, because fundamentally I have always felt like the underdog, and I play from the underdog's position, and want to help others who, especially in sales, don't feel like sales is their natural born talent. Like, I had a phone call with somebody yesterday. She's never been in sales, never liked sales, never been taught how to sell. She just bought a franchise of a business, and it requires sales. You may think that you're going into business, or you're running a business that does X, Y, and Z, but in fact, the reality of it is it's always involving sales. There's always sales in everything. And people like that, I am just driven to help and excited about helping, because I know what that's like to be the underdog in a sales role. And then the third thing is I want to leave people better than I found them, which is why I do these trainings, why I put all this out there, why I put everything out there that I can leading up to the programs that I have as well for people who may be interested in moving forward. So last week I talked about urgency. I'm going to do a bit of a recap, kind of like I always do. But I think the biggest thing is to understand and remember how we got to this point. And we got here because we're looking at the authentic persuasion pathway. And the authentic persuasion pathway starts with your potential customer, your lead, your prospect, whatever you want to refer to them as, in their comfort zone. So they're in their circle, they're in their bubble, they're safe, they're comfortable, they're warm, they're cozy. Danger's on the outside, unknown is on the outside, and the known is on the inside. And so that's where it's safe and warm. That's how they've made it this far in life, by taking the safest route possible and not making any huge missteps and dying so far. And so our brain, the survival part of our brain, is always looking at that as well. And so fundamentally, they are afraid. Fundamentally, they are worried about one thing, and that is making change. Change is dangerous to them, and in their mind, and in that primal part, the amygdala part, the part that's keeping us, that has kept us alive and survived and also thrived as a species, both as an individual and a species for this long, is because of that survival instinct and our comfort zone and sticking to what is known. Outside of that is change. Change equals danger. Change equals death. That's what you're up against. Now, you could be selling a consumer good. You could be selling enterprise software. You could be helping someone with hiring a property manager for their real estate. Doesn't matter. It's human to human, H to H sales. It's people, and you're dealing with someone who is scared, worried, confused, afraid at some level. Now, some of them might admit that, some of them might not. Some of them might be aware of it, some might not. Some of it might not have very much of that, or it might be extreme and severe. And the reason I can say that is because if they don't have those feelings, then they will literally contact you and say, how do I sign up? Or here's my money and I want to move forward. So for everyone else, that's what you're up against. So we've got this comfort zone. We've got this bubble surrounding your prospective customers, your clients to be. And so what happens is we start in the beginning with rapport. Rapport led to empathy. Empathy led to the trust step. Trust led to hope. Hope led to urgency. And of course, all those sessions are available on replay. If you go to my YouTube channel and search Jason Cutter, you can find a playlist of all of these authentic persuasion replays from the training sessions. They're also available on the Authentic Persuasion Show podcast. So you can find all of them there. And then you can also find them at the jasoncutter.com website. So we've got that person. We moved them through those 5 steps. Again, rapport, empathy, trust, hope, urgency. Check out those sessions. You can get more detail on that. And then we move them to urgency. Now, here's the biggest thing, and I covered this the last couple of sessions, is that urgency is typically seen as the problem. The issue is believed to be urgency. It's when someone is urgent, when somebody is pushing you to buy or pushing you to make a decision, that feels bad, right? That feels gross. The problem isn't urgency. The problem is not the act of urgency. The problem is not, hey, you need to buy this now, or you should do this now, or now would be the time to do X, Y, and Z. That's not the issue. It's 2 things that are really the issue. One is the timing of it, and then the other one is the intent behind it. So with the timing of it, a lot of times where urgency feels gross is where it's very early in the sales cycle, or it's a misplaced point in the sales cycle, and it feels like pressure that isn't surrounded by the value. The other part is intent, when we're dealing with a salesperson. I'm going to use air quotes if you're just listening to the replay. Salesperson in the classic sense of what we don't like in sales, and why sales has a dirty word, where their urgency feels like it's about their motivation, right? It's that salesperson's need to close a deal today, or this week, or this month, or this quarter, or by the end of the year, right? To meet their quota, their metrics, to make their bonus, to get a commission, to keep their job, whatever that looks like. But it feels like it's about them, and they don't really care what happens to you. Right? That's when urgency feels wrong. It's the, hey, what will it take for you to buy today? That kind of urgency, right? Like, how can I get you to buy before the end of the quarter? Pressure. That's what makes urgency seem like it's the problem, but fundamentally urgency is not the problem. So again, it's the timing and the intention. That's where urgency gets the bad rep. When you use it like we've talked about with the rapport, empathy, trust, hope, and then leading into the urgency. And then that at that point, you are now telling them, hey, based on everything we've been through, based on what you told me, and based on where I can help you get to, then the time is now, right? The time is now for us to move forward so that you can get to where you want to be, right? Get help, get to a better situation, whatever that looks like. So that is the key with urgency. And that's why we put it at the end. Then you're moving forward. We talked about the consultative close, which is really a consultative process. I like to call it a close because it gets people's attention, but it's really a process, which is asking questions, uncovering a need or a want, a problem, a goal, and then seeing if you have the solution. And if you do, giving them the best option, but also not being attached to that outcome because it's not about you, it's about them. Then the assumptive close is, I know I can help you. We've agreed I can help you. We agreed I have the solution for you. So hold on, here we go, right? The assumptive close, the assumptive process is one that's saying, I am the professional. And because I am the professional, I know the best way to go. I covered this many times. I've talked about this a lot. You are the guide. And as the guide and as the professional, you know the way to go. It's not about asking them because they're going to be afraid. They're going to be scared. If they knew the right way to go, they would already be going there, which means if you ask them if they want to go there, you're rolling the dice as to whether they're still stuck and afraid, or if you've successfully helped them get unstuck. Sometimes you just have to take them with you. So there is the recap. Again, I know I do these recaps at every episode in the beginning, but I think it's really important in the event that this is the first episode that you've caught, the first session you've tuned in. If so, welcome. Thanks for being here. Make sure to say hi in the comments. Leave a comment. Say where you're coming from. And then also, if you have any sales related questions, anything that's on your mind, anything you're struggling with, put them in the chat. But if you've been listening to this, one of the things is we know that repetition is important. Hearing the same thing, maybe in a different way, different terms, different phrases will help cement it in our brain. That's how we learn. Usually most people don't learn from hearing something once and then great, I can go apply it. It's about repetition, which is why I do that. So now let's talk about a couple of things. The first one is one of the biggest indicators that I have found of when somebody is an order taker. Okay. And I'm putting this in this part here when it comes to the urgency piece, because this is in the realm of the intangibles. So if you've made it this far and, you know, in the steps with your conversations and you're still not getting the results that you want, it could be some other things that are out there that are causing you to not be as effective, to not have the same selling effectiveness that you think you should have, or you want to have, or you should have. And so one of the biggest things, the biggest indicator of order taker, and again, order taker is a term that I use. It's not a derogatory, it's not name calling, it's not picking on anybody. It's really just a state of sales condition, right? Are you taking orders or are you helping persuade? Are you an authentic persuader, sales professional who's moving people intentionally through a process and towards a destination and towards success in one way or another? Or are you building rapport, showing empathy, creating trust, and then hoping that they like you enough that they want to move forward? Because if so, then you're an order taker. There's nothing wrong with that. I've been there myself. That's how I started in sales. I've been there many times in sales. It happens to everybody. Even throughout your career, you can find yourself slipping into order taking mode. And so it just happens. Key is to be aware of it. Once you're aware of it, then you can make some changes. Here's one of the biggest things that I have noticed as an indicator. I can listen to somebody's phone calls or sit in on somebody's meetings. And this is one of the biggest things where I can tell that somebody is an order taker. And it's when they pause. Now, I don't mean pausing. Let me just clarify, actually. I don't mean pausing in the sense of when you ask somebody a question, to pause and wait for them to answer. Okay, because one of the things I see is either a rep who's not very confident on like the pushy side or the order taker side. A lot of times they will ask a question and they don't want to pause. They don't want any dead air and then dead silence. And so if the other person isn't answering fast enough or coming up with a response, then they will jump in and then they will keep jumping in. And that is not good. That's not what I'm talking about here. But if you catch yourself doing that, make sure to pause, ask your question, and just wait. I'm also not talking about the pause when it comes to pricing, because this is one of those things where the standard advice is fairly accurate and true, which is when you tell somebody how much it costs is to pause, because the first person who speaks after that point is going to lose in the conversation, the negotiation, the pricing, whatever that looks like. So that's a different pause. It's a different strategy. I also, at times, it makes sense to not necessarily pause and to roll into another question when you're talking about pricing. So that's a different strategy. I'm also not talking about pausing when somebody asks you a question and you want to gather your thoughts. I think there's a lot of times where a lot of people feel like in sales, they're supposed to have the answers for everything. So their job is to just have everything available, thinking of everything, going 1,000 miles an hour, being able to just answer anything, talk anything, maybe talk their way out of or into everything and anything. They think that is the role of the salesperson. And so what happens is a prospective client will say something and or ask a question, and the salesperson just literally doesn't know to stop and just keeps steamrolling through. An instant answer, instant response, maybe not even a good answer. They just feel like they've got to answer as quickly as possible. And there's a couple problems with that. One is that you might be giving the wrong answer or the wrong response, right? Something that you're just babbling and it's not actually addressing it. The second one is that a lot of times what I see is that people are too busy thinking about what they're going to say next, and they don't actually listen to what was asked or what was said. And then they miss it because they're not using active listening, which I've talked about in a previous session. And then what happens is they respond, but it doesn't match what was said or what was asked. So they're too busy thinking about it, and they just go on the path they wanted to go on, independent of what the other person actually said. Excuse me. So that's not the pausing I'm talking about either. Those are all pauses where you want to be effective at them and use them. The pause I'm referring to is where people stop after they answer a question. So the order taker, one of the habits that the order taker has is that after they answer a question, typically an objection or an issue or a question or a concern, which are all different, then what happens is they pause. And so let me give you an example of what this looks like. And if you're curious, if you want to read more about this, you want to understand more about this, if you have a copy of Selling with Authentic Persuasion, make sure to check out chapter 12. So what the pausing looks like, if I am talking, let's say I'm asking you, we're moving through the application, because this is where usually objections and things start to come up, is when things start getting real. So if I said, hey, what's your social security number? Then people might be like, oh, okay, this is getting real. I am getting worried about this. I'm not sure I'm ready to move forward. I'm going to raise an objection. Well, is there a contract I have to sign? Right? Maybe that's the response that you get back. They didn't answer the question. They hit you with an objection because they're worried, right? That's what that means. They are scared. They're stuck. They're in the moment. They're worried, and they are not ready to move forward yet. And you need to help them. Now, here is where, just a sidebar, here is where most salespeople who aren't paying attention and aren't aware of people and psychology and human behavior, they take that question at face value to mean that that person just has that question, right? And most salespeople think or are taught that their job is to just overcome objections and then move forward, right? And if they get an objection, they get a question or concern, to overcome that, to move past it, keep going forward, right? And so that's generally what most people think their role is. Now, here is the challenge with that, is that if you don't understand where the question's coming from or why they even asked it in the first place, then the problem is you're just responding blind and not taking into account the source of where this came from. Here's what most salespeople do. Going back to the scenario, what's your social security number? Well, is there a contract that I have to sign? Yes, there's a contract, but you can cancel it. You can review it. You've got 5 days. You can check it out. You might want to have somebody else review it, but don't worry. Like, a lot of people sign this. I'll send it to you electronically. Blah, blah, blah. They just go on this like rambling monologue, verbal. Sometimes it's just verbal vomiting just all over that person, typically in a couple of ways. One is to either throw enough stuff at them where something will hopefully satisfy that question or concern, right? That objection that was raised, or they're just rambling because they don't actually have the confidence to answer in an appropriate way, like a professional. Then what happens? And this is the part that's most critical, right? Even after all of that, this is the part that matters the most in this, that you want to focus on and identify if you have this trait. Is you go through this long answer or short answer, whatever that looks like, then you get to the end and then you pause. Then you wait. I call it the death pause, because what happens is that in that pause, you've got your prospective customer who you're trying to move forward, right? Things are starting to get real in their mind, which means they are trying to stay tight in their comfort zone so they don't make a mistake, right? And get outside into the part that's dangerous. What happens is you're making it real. Something you said triggered them to make this feel like a sale, something salesy that they didn't like, or that this is going to equal change, and then it is going to be dangerous on the outside, and they got to either find a way out of this situation, or they've got to make sure they feel safe, right? And remember, your number one job is to help them feel safe, successful at fear elimination. SAFE, successful at fear elimination. So what happens is you pause. What happens in the real world in that scenario is that potential customer who asked you the question, you answered, you paused, they may or may not feel better by your answer, but their brain will typically come up with another question, another concern, because they're still scared, because you did not address the root issue, the root problem, which was their safety and their fear of change. Because you didn't address that, you leave a gap, they're going to hit you with another one. And then what happens is you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to answer short, long, blabbing on, long-winded answer, concise. I've seen it all. Usually don't see very many concise answers. And then what happens is you pause again. And then they ask another question. And I call this the death pause, or death by 1,000 punches, because what happens is they're going to keep asking questions. And I covered this before, and we can talk about control. Some people don't like the word control, but the person who's asking questions is in control. When you ask a question, what's your social security number? You're in control. You're running the process. The moment they ask you a question, they are now fighting for control, and it's up to you to give it to them or take it back. In that moment, you can give them some control and keep going. If you just pause and they keep hitting you with questions, they are in control. And what will happen, and I've seen this so many times to validate my feelings about this and my understandings and the logic behind this, by seeing it so many times in the wild, in sales conversations, is that at some point they will ask enough questions that you don't have enough good answers to. And they will get scared enough that they will literally retreat and say, hey, you know what? Excuse me. They will say, you know what? I think I need to think about this. Why don't you send me some more information and I'll get back to you. Right. And everyone watching or listening to this, you've heard that before. You've heard those kind of words. Or the I don't know, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't think this is for me. I'm not interested anymore, but thanks. Right. And you hear that response, which is just a gut punch, just breaks your heart, because you don't know what happened. You thought things were going well, and then now they're gone, or now they want to follow up email, or now they need to talk to their spouse or their uncle or their boss or their coworker. They've got to talk to somebody or do some research, or they just want to go. And here's the thing, is that when you pause, you give them the time to spin further and further into fear about what they don't want to have happen. And so the key is to not pause. Simple advice is to not pause. Now, there's a couple of pieces of advice in here, and we're going to go into that. We're going to break this apart because I really want to give you some strategies that you can use to help transform from order taker to quota breaker to deal maker to somebody who can successfully, consistently, and at a high level close deals and make money in sales. Even if you don't think of yourself as a salesperson, even if you don't like the term sales, this is key. This one thing here, I have seen so many people change the trajectory of their sales success and their selling effectiveness with this one thing. All the other parts are super important, but this one part for a lot of people, if they do this, they can actually make things happen, get further in conversations. So here is the key. The first thing is don't pause. Simple advice, really basic, really easy to understand. Just don't pause, right? So in that scenario, when you answer, do not pause. Don't pause. Because what happens is, again, if you have that pause in there, you are going to get hit with another objection, question, or concern, or you're going to give them time to think about how they're going to tell you that they don't want to talk to you anymore. And again, we've all seen it. So the key is don't pause. Now, before I get into what to do about it, one of the things to understand is why the pause happens. Again, a lot of times it's a lack of confidence, but most of the time, what I see with the order takers and the people that I experience who want to help people and want to be effective in sales and want to get better at what they're doing and really want to succeed by helping people buy from them and helping people get to a better place. The key is, and what I see as the consistency is that person is just trying to be courteous and polite. Excuse me. So you answer the question, you pause because you're giving them time to think about it. You're allowing space if they have other questions. If they have anything else that they want to bring up, you want to give them that platform. The last thing you want them to do is for them to feel like you are that pushy salesperson that you also don't like yourself. Because if you're in a buying situation and you have a question, the last thing you would want, my guess, is to be steamrolled, pushed. That's why I talked about urgency prior to talking about the step to help, excuse me, sorry, to help you understand and see that urgency is not the problem, right? Urgency is not the issue. It's the application of urgency. But there's a lot of people, and again, it's very good manners. It's coming from a good place in most people's hearts and minds, which is if you have a question, I answer that question. I'm going to answer it and then I'm going to pause. I'm going to let it soak in. I'm going to let you think about it. I'm going to see if there's any indicators. Did I get it right? Did my answer land appropriately? Did it solve your question or concern? Did it help you overcome this objection? Do you have any other questions before we move forward? I'm just going to leave that gap. That's on the positive side. That's my optimistic side that tries to think that most people are doing things for the right reasons. The other part, the reason why I see a lot of people pause is they're just weak. They just don't know how to sell. They don't know what their job is, and they haven't been trained or taught. I see a lot of salespeople thrown into a lot of sales roles where their managers, their trainers aren't teaching them the fundamental things about sales. Sure, they're teaching about products, they're teaching them about pricing, maybe overcoming objections, but not the deeper stuff that makes such a big difference when you want to sell at a highly effective level. So sometimes it just comes down to training. Sometimes it just comes down to awareness. Most people just don't understand the things that they do, just like most people don't understand the crutch words that they use, the filler words, right? The ums, the so's, like, but, those kind of things where somebody says them constantly, every sentence, every other sentence, and it's just filler words. Most people don't realize it until they get some feedback, until they hear themselves, until they get some coaching, until somebody tells them. Same thing with the pause. One of the biggest things, if you want to know if you have this death pause, if you have this pause after you answer questions, and again, there's appropriate pauses, and then there's this one I'm talking about. But if you have that, the best thing to do is get with your manager, get with somebody, get with your coach, Get somebody to listen to your calls or go through your recordings or sit in on your meetings and then give you that feedback to let you know if you do that. Because generally what happens is once you hear it, once you hear yourself doing it, like in a recording, then you will be aware of it and you'll realize the power of not doing that. And what happens when you do it, you can actually hear it play out in those conversations. So back to what not to do, don't pause. Now, the other thing, and I'm going to put this out there, and I have an ebook on this called Overcoming Objections. And a bunch of this stuff, like I basically took this chapter from the book, expanded on it, made some more bullet points. If you want just this ebook, so it's a sales consultant's guide to overcoming objections, both yours and theirs. And I can already tell based on how today is going with the topic, I'm not going to get to the second part, which is your objections and your issues in your head. We will have to do that in the new year. But if you don't want to wait, or if you want to get this in an ebook, a PDF form, email me, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com. Just put overcoming objections in the subject line. Let me know you want a copy of the ebook. Also helps too if you let me know if you heard it from this episode, just so that I know where you heard it, and I will email that out to you. No strings attached, just want you to have it. There's a bunch of great stuff on there to help you, both with what I'm about to cover, and then as well as your own objections, which again, we'll have to cover in January. So make sure email me, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com. I'll send you that PDF. So one of the things in that ebook, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. That's why I mentioned it. You can read through that, is also to keep your answers short. A lot of people go on long winded answers. Again, either they're not confident or they just want to throw enough stuff out there and hoping that something works. That actually makes things worse. That actually makes your prospective clients more afraid because you give this long-winded answer. Again, using an analogy like a doctor or any other professional, it doesn't matter. You can think of any professional. If you ask them a question and they go on this long, rambling, winding path where it feels like they're just throwing a bunch of stuff at you and saying everything that they can think of, whether it applies to your question or not, how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel confident in them as a professional and that they have your best interests in mind and they're capable and able to actually help you with what it is that you're trying to buy? Or are you concerned? Does it set off red flags? Are you worried about their ability to actually do it and help you? So just keep that in mind. Fundamentally, keep your answers short. If possible, yes, no, single word answers. Back to my example with the Social Security. What's your Social Security number? Do I have to sign a contract? Yes. That's it. That's it. There's no long answer is needed unless they have a follow-up question. If they want to know more, then they can know more. And that actually leads into the strategy. And the first strategy to use, the first way to overcome this pause, the best thing you can do in place of this death pause is to return to question. RTQ, return to the question that you asked and where you were trying to go. So let me run through this scenario again. What's your Social Security number? Hold on. Do I have to sign a contract? Yes, you do. Go ahead. What's your Social Security number? Now, for a lot of people, they hear that scenario and they think, oh my gosh, that seems so forceful. It's like I didn't really address their question. I didn't overcome that objection. Like, what if they're not happy with that? Now it feels like I'm just badgering them for the social. Here's some things. And I mentioned that ebook. That's why it's so important. If you want to read more about this, is there is a significant difference between a question, a concern, and an objection, right? Sometimes people just have questions. They're just checking the box. They just want to know something. And then once they know it, they're okay moving forward. Some of it might be a concern. I don't know where this is going to fit on my thought process. I'm still in my comfort zone. I'm afraid of change. Looking at all of that, I'm kind of concerned about it. But if I hear a good enough answer, or I feel confident in the answer or in the sales professional, it's okay because I'll just move forward. Then there's an objection. Most people label everything as objections. An objection is let's stop here. Like, I don't know if I want to move forward. I have an issue with blank, right? That's an objection. Most people treat everything like objections. The problem is that if you treat everything like an objection, and an objection is something that's potentially a hard stop, then you're going to oversell, over explain, overthink, over respond to everything, even if it was a question. So what if it's just a question? Do I have to sign a contract? Yes. Okay. I was just curious. I just want to know. Right. But what if you went on this long monologue? You can actually make things worse. I call it rebutting yourself, where you're literally throwing out stuff that they might not even have been thinking about, and you only make it worse. Like I said, raising red flags, triggering things, making them feel insecure about you, your product, your service, your company. And so what happens is you can actually make it worse. You can actually shoot yourself in the foot with long answers. The key is, how do you know if it's a question, a concern, or an objection? You don't. So when in doubt, treat them all like a question with a short answer, right? Again, imagine a professional in another line of work, like a doctor. Do I need to take these meds for 7 days? Yes. Not some long monologue answer. And you could raise you could hit them with a second one and say, okay, but like why, and what if I don't want to, or blah, blah, blah. That's a different layer. There's going to be a different response. Fundamentally, if it can be answered with a yes or no answer, you should answer it with a yes or no answer, or a one-word answer. Trust me, it's going to feel weird. Practice it. That should be your goal. Again, you don't know if it's a question, concern, or objection. So focus on that in the beginning and give a short answer. Do I have to sign a contract? Yes, you do. Go ahead. What's your social security number? Now, here's what could happen and play out. They say, hold on a second. Before I give you that, like, how long is the contract and what happens if I don't want to move forward? Now we're in concern, right? So now they've just indicated by doing a follow-up question, they've told us this is more than just a question, right? It's not just a curiosity. Now it's a concern. There's something happening at a level in their mind that's making them want to know more, right? They weren't satisfied, and that's okay. This is totally fine. They will let you know, right? Now, they might say, I don't sign contracts. And then now you've got an objection. Now you can go into your objection handling and talk to them about why they don't sign contracts and what, the benefit could be. But again, don't assume that everyone doesn't sign contracts, because if you do, you only make it worse. Trust me. This is one of the fatal flaws of the salesperson, both the classic salesperson and the order taker. So again, don't pause, answer yes or no, keep going, return to question. Ask the question that you tried to ask the first time that, might I point out, they most rudely did not answer, right? You were trying to ask them a question. They didn't answer it. You need to know the answer to that because you're a professional and you want to move them forward, right? The assumptive close with the urgency, because now is the time to help them if you know you can help them, right? Built on the fundamentals where, like I said, is that there's the power of saying no. So if it wasn't a good fit, those people are already gone. They're not in this conversation now. If they are a good fit, we're going to keep going as their guide. And so if they stop you, you answer and then return to your question that they so inappropriately stopped you from going through with, and they didn't give you the answer. And so you want to get back to it. They hit you with a second question, something deeper, more of a concern, more of an objection. I don't sign contracts. How long is this contract? What are the terms? What if I want to cancel? What if I'm not happy? Great. You're prepared because you're a professional, which means you have the answers for these. Keep them short, keep them simple, keep them focused on what they asked, not what you think they asked, not what you have all written out to answer anything about contracts, but what did they ask? How long is the contract? And what happens if I want to cancel? Contracts are for 12 months. If you want to cancel, you have to give us notice 30 days, and then you can cancel, or whatever your terms are, right? Here is the key. The second time, you got to be careful, because what you don't want to do is pause. The second time, though, they ask something and they want to keep going deeper. This is where you use phase number 2 in your responses. All right. And this one is important. I call it empathetic reversing. Now, what is reversing? Reversing is a tactic most people know, which is where you answer a question with a question. Instead of actually asking a question, you just are answering a question, you just ask another question and you just go back and forth, right? What color is the sky? Why do you want to know? Why won't you tell me? What do you think it is? Right? Like there's this BS back and forth, right? And unfortunately, it's something that's taught in a classic sales sense, which is just don't answer their question, just use reversing, and then just put it back on them. Because again, going back to the model that you have to be careful about, which is the person who's asking questions is in control. So if you use reversing, then you are always trying to fight back for control by asking a question. Only thing that's going to do is just drive people mad. It's just going to drive people crazy, and they're not going to want to do business with you. I promise. They're not going to want to talk to you. They're going to find it annoying. They just want to know the answers to questions. It will make them feel like you're hiding something, which is probably what you're doing, and they won't want to do business with you. Trust me. Don't do it. Don't do classic reversing. Now, what is empathetic reversing? Empathetic reversing is answering a question with a question, but with a twist in two ways. One is the intent, which is, I want to know why you're asking this question, this concern, this objection. I want to fundamentally know where this is coming from, right? And the reason why I want to know is because I care. And the reason I care is because I know that we have a destination we're trying to get to, you and I know what that looks like because I'm your guide and I'm a sales professional. And because I know what that looks like and where we're going and where I've taken other people to, you are here and you are getting in the way, and I am trying to guide you. You're the hero in this journey, but you're making it really difficult on me as the guide. I'm trying to get you up the mountain. I'm trying to get you where you told me you want to be, and you're making it difficult on me. It doesn't have to be difficult. And again, this is coming from a place as a guide. I've seen it. I know what's there. I know we can do it. I know it's safe. I know it's success. I know we can get there. And so the thing is that when somebody raises a question, concern, or objection, and you use empathetic reversing, it's because you care. You want to know, where is this coming from? Like, why is this coming up? And I want to know because I care about you and our destination, and I just want to help you get past this. I want you to help feel safe, successful at fear elimination. Remember that part. It's always our goal. Help them feel safe. The second part where empathetic reversing, the empathy part comes in, and why I use that term is it will direct your tone. Because I've seen a lot of people try to use this kind of reversing, especially with objections, and then the tone doesn't come out well, and it feels combative or argumentative in a way that salespeople can do, or teenagers do when, asked about something and they respond back, and then it feels like they're hiding something. We all know what that's like, because either you are a parent with teenagers, or you were a teenager at one point and you knew what you didn't want your parents asking you about, or you didn't want to tell them about school, or this person you were interested in, or what happened with your allowance, like whatever. So the empathetic reversing part is so key. The empathetic part is the key. So with empathetic reversing, what that looks like is, let's take that scenario of, go ahead, what's your social security number? Is there a contract? Yes, there is. Go ahead. What's your social security number? Wait, how long is the contract for, and can I cancel? Here's the key. First, answer their question. Don't be a jerk. Answer their question, right? Actually give them the information they need. So the contract is for 12 months. And if you want to cancel, you would have to just let us know with 30 days notice, and then you can cancel. But let me ask you, what is it about the contract that's important to you or relevant for you? Whatever that looks like, you have to put it in your own terms, right? And plan this out, write it out, have a strategy for this. Again, I cover this in the ebook. Just email me, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com. Just mention overcoming objections, and I'll send you that ebook. Here's the key is, if you notice, what I did was I answered it short and sweet, super short, super sweet, super sweet. Like, I'm not messing around when I'm telling you, keep your answers shorter and sweeter and more effective, and actually answer their questions. Then what I did, but let me ask you, why is that important to you? That's what I'm trying to fill in, right? And it depends on what they ask. You have to be sensitive to it. Sometimes that doesn't work well. Sometimes you have to ask it in a completely different way. Sometimes it's going to sound weird if you ask, why is that important to you? Why is the contract important to you? Like, that might sound weird. But the key is that I answered, and then I asked, and I care, and I want to know. And if you notice the tone, that was also the key. Let me ask you, like, why is the contract important to you? I just want to know, right? Help me understand. Help me understand why that is. When it's done wrong, it sounds like this. But, well, why don't you want to sign a contract? And I've heard so many salespeople do that, right? And I've heard that just blow so many deals, whether it comes to fee, terms like contracts, agreements, impact on business, impact on credit, financing, those kind of like hot button items when somebody is scared and these are the big things they're worried about or they've had a bad experience with, is the key is that you've got to make sure that your answer is empathetic based, where you are asking it because you care and you want to know because you care. Because then what you can do is actually answer it appropriate. Because here's the thing, if I ask them that, let me ask you, what is it about the contract that you're concerned about or you're thinking about or you're wondering about? Whatever language makes the most sense for you, right? They could say, well, I signed a contract before with a company similar to this who was helping me with for their marketing, and they didn't do what they said, and then I couldn't cancel. They wouldn't let me cancel. I kept calling, like nobody answered the phone, and it was a giant pain. What just happened in that made up fictitious scenario? I'm just running through off the top of my head. What just happened? Two things. I found out what happened in a previous bad experience. Number two, I found out what they're concerned about and I know how to address that, right? Super important. Now, if I had just done my standard answers and just rattled off like most salespeople do, I would never have found out those facts unless they felt like bringing them up. And most people don't. They don't want to talk about their previous mistakes unless they're going to use that as a way to get out of this conversation. And so what happens is I just learned some very, very valuable information. And what I know is two things based on that. Number one is I have to make them feel safe, like we are different than that past company they dealt with. And two, the other thing that I know is I'm better than that other company. I know I'm better than that other salesperson. I know I'm more effective because I know that I can help somebody up the mountain to success. So now based on that, I would answer appropriately. Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up. Sorry to hear that happened. Here's what we do. We have an excellent rating with the BBB or with Google or Yelp, or we have testimonials. We have the customer service number. If anything does happen, you can't get a hold of customer service, here's my phone number. You can call me anytime. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here in 6 months. I'll be here in a year. If you have any questions or concerns, you just call me. If you want, you can call me first. I'm here to help you, right? I don't ever want you to feel like if this isn't a good fit for you, that you can't change your mind, right? Whatever that response looks like for you. And that will truly move them towards getting out of their comfort zone, because that will help them feel comfortable and help them feel safe, which is the key that we want. So again, empathetic reversing is built on the top of return to questions, which is to get back to where you were, which is to overcome the death pause, which is what so many people do just on autopilot. They're not aware of it. Best thing you can do is get a recording of your phone calls or a recording of your video demos, or if you have in-person meetings, to record it and then be able to play it back and hear it. Have somebody outside of you give you some feedback. Either you have a manager, a team lead, hire a coach, get somebody who can help you identify if you have that pause, and then work on overcoming it. Again, if you want the ebook, because I think this will help a lot of people. I've seen this one part help people overcome what's usually the most stressful and painful part of the selling process, which is dealing with objections, questions, concerns. Again, most people lump them all together. Email me, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com, and I will send that Overcoming Objections ebook. So that's it for today. That's it for this year. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's December 10th, but this will be the last session. So we're going to finish on session 16 before the holidays. One big thing, make sure if you haven't, to check out jasoncutter.com. Across the top is a banner with a link for the private group coaching program. So if you're listening or watching this and you're thinking one of two things, one is my team needs more of this and they need your help, Jason, or if you're in sales or you're a small business owner or you're doing anything that you know should be involving selling more, and you like this content, this information is valuable, but you have questions, you're not sure how to apply it. You hear what I'm saying about empathetic reversing and returning to questions, and the scripting that I said sounds good, but maybe it doesn't apply to what you say, or you're not sure how to say it for what you're selling or for who you are and your personality, then the private group coaching program is perfect for you. So for $50 a month, you can join that. We're going to have weekly meetings where it's just an open Q&A, hot seat mode. You bring your questions, you bring your challenges, your concerns, your stumbling blocks, whether it's sales strategy, process, mindset. Mindset's such a huge thing. I get so many questions on. And then what we'll do is we'll just tackle it, and you can learn from others the questions they have. Maybe they have questions you're either afraid to ask or you didn't even think about. Maybe it's things you're not even aware of that are a question or an issue in your sales process. That's why I love this group private coaching model, is because you will learn things from other people that you didn't even know that you could learn from them. And it's just so valuable. So make sure to go to jasoncutter.com, or you can always email me, jason@cutterconsultinggroup.com, put in the email private group coaching or some version of those terms. And I'd be happy to send you the information, get you added to the pre-enrollment wait list. Program will be starting soon, and I will see you there. But that's it for this episode. And I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks so much. And I will catch you in 2022.